Monica Reynolds didn't knock. She never knocked. Not on the bedroom door of her own son. Not on the life she believed she owned. Not on the truth that had been sitting behind that door for months, humming quietly with the glow of monitors and the clicking of keys. She just opened it, hard, like she was kicking a problem out into the light. "Ethan!" she snapped. This tension is about to escalate quickly. If you enjoy stories that reveal hidden truths, hit that subscribe button right now so you don't miss the ending. Ethan flinched in his desk chair. 3 screens were open. A video meeting had just ended. A spreadsheet full of numbers was still on display. Code was running in a window on the right. A chat thread with the label "Client Urgent" blinked with a new message. Monica saw none of it. To her, it was the same old scene. Her 24-year-old son in sweatpants, messy hair, dim room, curtains drawn. The evidence in Monica's mind was overwhelming. Lazy, unmotivated. A grown man hiding in a bedroom like a teenager. "You've been in here all day again," she said, voice sharp like she was reading a list of charges. "You don't even try to be part of this family. You don't help your father. You don't socialize. You don't—" Ethan opened his mouth, then closed it. He didn't have the energy for the argument. Not tonight. He glanced at the time in the corner of his screen. 11:47 p.m. He'd been working since 7 a.m. But that word, working, had become useless in this house. It meant nothing unless it looked like what Monica respected. A suit, an office, a title she could brag about at her country club brunch. Not a son in a dark room, quietly building something she refused to understand. Monica stepped farther into the room like she owned the air. "You know what your aunt said today?" she asked. Ethan didn't respond. "She asked if you were, you know." Monica lowered her voice like it was shameful to say out loud. "If you were depressed. If you needed help. If you were addicted to games." Ethan exhaled slowly. Monica took his silence as confirmation. "Because that's what it looks like," she continued. "It looks like we're raising a loser." That word hit different. Loser. Ethan's fingers tightened around the edge of his desk. He stared at the glowing message from his client. "Client, urgent. Can we move up the delivery? We need it by tomorrow morning. Paying rush bonus." Ethan swallowed. His throat felt tight. "Mom, I'm busy," he said, choosing his words carefully, like walking across thin ice. Monica laughed, short and cruel. "Busy doing what? Clicking around on a computer? Ethan, you're not 14. You can't hide in your room forever and call it a life." Ethan turned slightly in his chair so he could see her. He was tall, broad-shouldered, but his face carried the kind of tired you couldn't fix with sleep. He looked older than his age. Monica, on the other hand, looked sharp as a knife. Perfect hair, designer blouse, a gold watch that flashed whenever she moved her wrist. She had money, power, influence. Not billionaire status, but in their upscale neighborhood outside Chicago, Monica Reynolds moved like a queen, and Ethan was the family embarrassment. At least, that's what Monica had decided. "Get out of that chair," Monica demanded. "Come downstairs. Your father and I are done pretending this is normal." Ethan looked back at his monitors. The work waiting for him wasn't optional. People were counting on him. Money was on the line. His future. But Ethan also knew how these scenes went. If he didn't comply, Monica would escalate. She always did. So he stood. He followed her downstairs. In the kitchen, the lights were bright and cold. His father, Richard Reynolds, sat at the island with a glass of water, his jaw clenched. Richard wasn't as loud as Monica, but he was worse in a quieter way. He didn't defend Ethan. He just looked disappointed, like Ethan was a failed investment. Monica leaned against the counter, arms folded. "This is it," she said. Ethan waited. "No more excuses," she continued. "You either get a real job or you move out." Ethan blinked. He'd known it was coming, but hearing it out loud still felt like getting shoved. Richard finally spoke. "Your mother's right," he said evenly. "We gave you time, months. We thought you'd figure it out." Ethan's mouth went dry. I have a job, he said. Monica rolled her eyes. Oh, please, don't insult us. You sit in your room all day. You don't even leave the house. Ethan's voice rose slightly. Because I'm working. What, streaming video games? Monica said. Making little internet money? Ethan's hands trembled. He wanted to shout. To slam a folder of proof on the counter. To force them to see him. But he also felt something else. A strange calm. Because the truth was, he didn't need them to believe him anymore. Not financially, not practically, not emotionally. He just wanted it anyway. Some part of him still wanted his parents to look at him with pride. Monica's voice softened, but only in the way a person softens when delivering a final blow. Ethan, you're not a child. If you want to live here, you will contribute. You will be part of this family, and you will stop hiding in that room like a parasite. Parasite. Ethan stared at her. There it was, the complete dismissal. Not just of what he did, but of who he was. Richard nodded faintly, still not meeting Ethan's eyes. Monica continued. You have 2 weeks, she said. If you don't have a real job, something I can recognize, then you're out. Ethan's heartbeat slowed. 2 weeks. He didn't need 2 weeks. He needed one phone call. But he didn't say that. Instead, he nodded. Okay, he said quietly. Monica's eyebrows lifted, surprised by the lack of resistance. That's it? She asked. Ethan nodded again. That's it. And he went back upstairs. Monica watched him leave, then turned to Richard like she'd just handled an annoying chore. He'll crack, she said. He always does. Richard didn't answer, because deep down, even Richard was starting to wonder. Ethan didn't look like someone who was playing games. He looked like someone carrying weight. But Richard had spent years letting Monica decide what reality was. Upstairs, Ethan shut his door. He leaned his forehead against it for a moment. Then he walked back to his desk. The client message still blinked. He sat, cracked his knuckles, and started typing. Because Ethan Reynolds wasn't hiding. He was building. And the truth was, he'd been building it for a long time. Months earlier, Ethan had stumbled onto something that made sense to him in a way school never did. He'd always been good with computers. He could focus for hours. He could solve problems that made other people's heads spin. But in the Reynolds house, that wasn't real. Real meant corporate. Real meant commuting downtown. Real meant a job title Monica could use as social proof. After college, Ethan tried. He applied for entry-level tech positions. He got interviews. He got rejected. Over and over. Not because he wasn't smart, because he didn't play the networking game well. He didn't sell himself like a product. He hated small talk. And every time he came home discouraged, Monica took it personally. You're embarrassing us, she'd say. Other people's sons are thriving. One day your father and I won't be here to pay for you. So Ethan stopped explaining. He stopped asking. And one night, after another lecture, he sat at his computer and searched how to make money with coding remotely. He found freelancing platforms, he found clients, he found demand. People who didn't care what his mother thought. People who only cared if Ethan could deliver. And Ethan could deliver. His first job paid $300. Monica didn't notice. His second job paid $900. Monica still didn't notice. Then came a project for a small e-commerce company in Texas. They needed automation, inventory tools, a custom dashboard. Ethan worked for 2 weeks straight. He barely slept. He was exhausted. But when the final payment hit his account, it was $12,000. Ethan stared at the screen for a long time, not because of the money, but because for the first time he felt something he hadn't felt in years. Control. He could build a life, quietly, without begging for approval. As his work improved, clients started recommending him. Soon he was booked. Soon he had repeat contracts. Soon he was making more in a month than Richard did at his mid-level management job. But Ethan still lived upstairs, still kept his head down. Because every time he tried to tell Monica, she mocked him. That's not stable. That's not a career. That's little internet work. So Ethan kept working. He saved. He planned. And then he did something he never told anyone. He started looking at apartments, not because he wanted to punish his parents, but because he needed peace, and he had enough now to buy it. 2 weeks after Monica's ultimatum, Ethan stood in his room with a single suitcase on the bed. A second suitcase leaned against the wall. His desk was still set up, but the personal items were gone. No posters, no clutter, just the tools of his work. His phone buzzed, a notification from his bank, deposit, $3,500. Ethan's stomach tightened. The last milestone. The final payment from a contract that had taken him 3 months. It was done. Everything was done. He opened an email. Subject line: Closing documents, Lakeview condo. He stared at it. Lakeview. A clean neighborhood in Chicago. A condo with a view of the water. A place where no one would burst into his room to call him a parasite. He exhaled. Then he heard Monica downstairs. Her voice carried upward, bright and social. She had company. Ethan froze. Then he remembered. It was Sunday, the day Monica loved to host. Aunt Denise, Uncle Mark, cousins, neighbors, people who laughed too loud and asked questions that felt like traps. And Monica. Monica loved an audience. Ethan zipped his suitcase. He decided he would leave quietly. He'd slip out the back. He didn't want a scene. He didn't want the satisfaction of proving them wrong in front of everyone. But the moment he stepped into the hallway, Monica's voice cut through the noise. "Ethan!" He stopped. The footsteps on the stairs were quick. Monica appeared at the top, smiling with her guests behind her, but the smile was tight, performative. "Come down here," she said. "Everyone's asking about you." Ethan glanced at his suitcase. Monica saw it. Her eyes narrowed. "What is that?" she demanded. Ethan's heart sank. So much for leaving quietly. He lifted the suitcase slightly. "I'm moving out," he said. The chatter downstairs quieted. You could feel the entire house leaning in. Monica laughed, loud and fake. "Moving out?" she repeated. "With what money?" A couple of guests chuckled awkwardly. Ethan felt his face heat. Richard stepped into the hallway behind Monica, looking confused. "Ethan," he began. Monica cut him off. "Let him answer," she said, turning her head so the guests could hear. "Ethan, tell everyone how you're moving out. Tell them what your job is." Ethan's throat tightened. This was what she wanted, a public humiliation, a story to tell later. My son thought he was a grown man. Ethan looked past her at the people gathered below. Aunt Denise with her judging eyes, Uncle Mark smirking, a neighbor whispering, and Monica, standing like a prosecutor. Ethan could have lied. He could have said he got hired somewhere. Shrinking. "I'm a software contractor," he said. Monica blinked, then scoffed. "So, you're unemployed," she said. Ethan's jaw tightened. "I'm not unemployed," he said, stronger this time. "I have clients. I build systems for businesses. Monica raised her voice. "Enough," she said. "Fantasies just because you're embarrassed." Ethan stared at her. Then Monica stepped closer, lowering her voice to a hiss, but still loud enough for everyone. "If you walk out that door, don't come crawling back." There it was, the line she believed would scare him into obedience. Ethan's hand tightened on the suitcase. Something changed. Not anger, not revenge, just clarity. He nodded once. "I won't," he said. Monica's smile faltered. She hadn't expected that. Ethan stepped forward, walking down the stairs with his suitcase. The guests shifted uncomfortably to make room. Whispers followed him like shadows. Behind him, still trying to regain control of the narrative. "You're really doing this?" she said loudly. "In front of everyone?" Ethan reached the bottom. He set the suitcase down, and then he did something no one expected. He pulled a slim folder from the side pocket. It wasn't dramatic. It wasn't theatrical. That would change everything. a folder of closing documents. Richard's eyes landed on the letterhead. He frowned. Monica followed his gaze. Her face shifted. "What is that?" she demanded. Ethan opened the folder. He pulled out a single page, a bank statement, and on that page was a number so big it looked like a typo, widened. The guests leaned in. Aunt Denise's mouth fell open. Uncle Mark stopped smirking. Monica snatched the paper from Ethan's hands. Her fingers moved as she scanned. Balance, deposits, recurring payments, 5-figure transfers. Her lips parted. Richard stepped closer. "Monica," he said, but Monica didn't hear him. Truth, and it didn't fit her worldview. Ethan watched her carefully. He didn't smile. He didn't gloat. He just looked tired. Monica finally looked up at him. Her voice was quieter now. Where did you get this?" she asked. Ethan swallowed. "I earned it," he said. Monica shook her head like denial could reverse time. "This can't be..." Ethan took another paper from the folder, a receipt, a wire confirmation. "Down payment," he said, "for my condo." The room went still. Even the house seemed to hold its breath. Richard looked like he'd been punched. "You bought a place?" he asked. Ethan nodded. "In Lakeview," he said. Someone whispered, "That's expensive," drained of color. Lakeview wasn't just expensive, it was prestigious, the kind of address Monica would brag about if it belonged to her. And the worst part, Ethan did it without them, without her approval, without her permission. Monica's voice trembled. "Why didn't you tell us?" she asked. Ethan stared at her. Voice. He didn't insult her. He didn't mention the word parasite. He didn't have to. "Because you never listened," he said. Silence. Monica's eyes glistened. For a second, she looked like she might apologize. But then her pride lunged forward like a reflex. She said, swallowing, "If you're doing so well, then you can help us. You can contribute more. You can..." Ethan's expression hardened, not with cruelty, but with finality. "That's not why I'm showing you," he said. Monica blinked. "Then why?" Ethan took the papers back gently, as if he didn't want to tear them. He said, "Because you wanted proof. You wanted a job you could recognize. You wanted a reason to respect me." He slid the papers back into the folder. "And I'm realizing I don't need that anymore." Richard's eyes were wet. He opened his mouth, then closed it. Because what could he say? To tear their son down and had said nothing. Monica's voice cracked. "Ethan!" "Wait," she said. The guests were staring now, not entertained anymore. Embarrassed, because they could see it. They could see the cruelty. They could see the regret forming too late. Ethan picked up his suitcase. He looked at his father. "Dad," he said, desperate. "I'm sorry," Richard whispered. Ethan held his gaze. "I wanted you to believe in me," Ethan said. "Even once." Richard's face collapsed. Monica stepped forward, reaching out. "Ethan," she begged, "please. We didn't know. I didn't know." Ethan stepped back. "You didn't want to know," he said quietly. Door. Monica followed, panic rising. "Where are you going? You can stay here," she said, desperate now, switching tactics. "We can talk. We can fix this. I'll tell everyone you're successful. Ethan paused at the threshold. He turned back. His voice was calm. "Mom," he said, "hard so you could brag about me. I worked that hard because I was drowning in this house." Monica froze. Ethan's eyes were steady. "The day you called me a loser," he said, "something in me broke. And I finally understood you weren't going to change." Monica's mouth trembled. Ethan nodded once. "Way to be kinder," he said. "To someone. Anyone." And then he opened the door. Cold air rushed in. He stepped out. The door closed behind him with a soft click. Not a slam. Not a dramatic exit. Just the sound of a boundary being set. Outside, Ethan walked down the driveway to a modest car. Not a sports car, not a statement. He put his suitcase in the trunk. He sat in the driver's seat. And for the first time in years, he breathed like his lungs belonged to him. Inside, Monica stood motionless. The guests shifted uncomfortably. Aunt Denise whispered, "Monica, I didn't know." But Monica couldn't respond. It wasn't that Ethan was leaving. It was that he had been winning all along, and she had been too blinded by her own judgment to notice. Richard sat down heavily at the kitchen island. He stared at the empty spot where Ethan had stood. Monica's voice came out small. "He was right here," she whispered, "all this time." Answer. Because there was nothing left to defend. The truth had already done its damage. Later that night, Monica went upstairs. She stood outside Ethan's room. For the first time in her life, she lifted her hand. And she knocked. No answer. Of course there was no answer. She opened the door. The room was emptier than she expected. There, the chair. But the personal warmth was gone. No signs of a boy, no signs of a son, just the echo of someone who had been surviving. Monica walked to the desk. She noticed something she'd never noticed. A small sticky note on the corner of the monitor. She peeled it off. It read, "Deliver. Don't explain." She sat in the chair, and for the first time, Monica Reynolds wondered what it would have cost her to be proud earlier, not when it became impressive, not when there was proof, but when it was just effort, just struggle, just her son trying. Ethan, meanwhile, drove through Chicago's late-night streets, flashed across his windshield. His phone buzzed again. A message from his client. "Client, you delivered early. Bonus sent. You're the best contractor we've ever had." Ethan stared at the message for a moment. Then he put the phone down. Because for once, he didn't need someone else's validation. He pulled into a parking garage. He stepped into his new condo. The place smelled like fresh paint and new beginnings. He set his suitcase down. He walked to the window. He could see the city. He could see the water. He could see a future that didn't require him to prove his worth to people who refused to see it. And that's the real twist. The shocking part isn't that Ethan had money. It's that he had built himself into someone unstoppable, while the people closest to him were busy tearing him apart. Because sometimes the person you underestimate isn't failing, they're transforming. And sometimes the apology comes after the door has already closed. The lesson is simple, but it hurts. Don't measure someone's value by what you can recognize. Don't demand proof of a life you refuse to understand. And don't wait until success is loud to offer respect. Because the people who work in silence, they learn how to leave in silence too.